right, good morning and welcome to the Daily Devo for Tuesday morning, the 23rd of August. Today's devotion and tomorrow's, we're going to have to break this one in half as well, or somewhere around half, is entitled The Real Problem. The Real Problem. Sometimes we don't know what the real problem is, but he's going to explain it to us. Don't ignore the real problem. It is easy to lay Christianity out in a logical and reasonable way, and yet there are some questions that need to be addressed. Why, in these 2,000 years since Jesus walked the earth, have so few people wholeheartedly embraced his teachings? Why do people like you and me, who want to follow his way more closely, struggle so monumentally and consistently to do so? What is the problem? Well, Paul wrote in Romans 7:19, I do not do the good I want, but the evil I do not want is what I do. This is the essential dilemma every Christian faces when we try to walk with God and live the teachings of Jesus Christ. So, what is the real problem? Watch the evening news and you will quickly come to the conclusion that the world is in a bit of a mess. I don't know anyone who would say the world is moving in a great direction. As a parent of young children, I'm concerned about the world that they will inherit. Many grandparents try not to think about the world their grandchildren will experience because it makes them too anxious. They have seen enough of the change to recognize just how disturbing the trends are. How did the world get to be a mess? Do you want the truth or some sugar-coated answer? Lots of people could give you lots of different reasons, answers, and excuses, but most of them would focus only on one aspect of the mess. They would talk about suffering and death, the collapse of the family, poverty and economic turmoil, or environmental breakdown, but these are all just symptoms. What is the disease? If you get the flu, your symptoms may be a sore throat, a hacking cough, a fever, a runny nose, and aches and pains. I evidently wrote this before COVID because the same symptoms for COVID. But the only way to fix the symptoms is to cure the disease. Let's get back to the question. How did the world get to be a mess? The big answer, the macro answer, is that people are sinful and they turn their backs on God. Sin is the disease. Sin is the real problem. And the truth is, sin makes us unhappy, even though it tries to sell us something else. God never intended for us to suffer and die. His original idea was for us to live in paradise forever. God's original plan was for ever reigning peace between him, man, and the environment, and harmony between all men and women. Suffering and death are a direct result of sin. Think about Gideon in the book of Judges. This whole book of the Bible is a series of stories that illustrate the Israelites turning away from God and then turning back to him. Each time they embraced sin and turned away from God, their lives became miserable. Each time they turned their backs on God, they fell into another form of slavery. Sin always leads to slavery of one kind or another. But each time the Israelites turned back to God, they experienced peace. They experienced prosperity. The same thing happens to us. When we turn away from God, our lives become miserable. Sure, there may be pleasure to be had in the moment, but the pleasure is fleeting. It's not sustainable. And after the pleasure of sin has faded, there is just the misery it inevitably leaves behind. And every sin makes the world a little bit more of a mess. Sin and evil are real. They are not something that is just out there somewhere. They are in you. They are in me. Sin and evil are possessed in the hearts of every human being. We have hearts that are deceitful and desperately wicked, the prophet Jeremiah says. We each have the capacity for tremendous virtue and good, but we also have the capacity for sin and evil. These things are in us, and we have to come to terms with them if we are going to live life to the fullest the way God wants us to. So what is sin? The Greek word for sin in the New Testament means to miss the mark. If you were shooting an arrow at a target, this means that you would not only miss the bullseye, you'd miss the whole target. Every sin, large or small, is in some measure a rejection of the best version of ourselves. Sin is usually spoken about as a behavior that is wrong or immoral, and it is. But the only way to truly understand sin is in the context of the relationship between God and humanity. God is infinitely good, and all his works are good. It is out of his goodness that he created us in his image and for good. Genesis 1:27-31. Sin is more than just a bad behavior. It is a rejection or destruction of something good. You cannot reject or destroy something that is good without rejecting goodness itself. God is goodness, and so every sin is in some way a rejection of God and God's ways. This is why the most devastating dimension of sin is separation from God. Sin breaks down our relationship with him, puts obstacles between us and him, and we end there for today. This is a little more serious maybe than some of the others our author has shared with us, but this is it. This is the heart of the matter. All our pursuits in life center here. Where are we focusing? Where are we living? What Lord in our lives are we listening to? Our sinful hearts, our sinful natures, or God and what he offers to us new and free? Blessings to you today. Ponder this between today and tomorrow.